So our last speaker is Brian Martins. He is a parent in our community, and he is also the president of the Langley DPAC. Thanks so much for coming out today. I know you had to move some stuff around to join us, so we're very fortunate to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really appreciate the opportunity to bring a bit more of a parent's perspective. I'm just really just a dad that volunteered. And in my volunteering here over the couple of years, I'm fortunate enough to be this last year elected as the president of the DPAC. And so over the many years that I've been able to support, I've seen obviously our community grow. To the point where we're now roughly 3,000 extra students over the last 3 years, 1,200 over 1,200 this last little while. And parents, rightfully so, have different concerns at many different levels across. Part of it really is not only the township, but we encompass as a school district and parents, we also have parents in our inner city and in Langley City as well too. So we definitely see quite a bit of a different swath of kind of concerns really from our inner city to our biggest growing in Willoughby as well too. So I think part of my question really comes around to, and part of the first question is how are we able to grow the schools? How are we able to add more schools effectively and efficiently, really, when we know we need the places? We don't want, and I know everybody says, look, portables, we have lots of different portables everywhere. But how do we allow those students to participate actively within schools? We've heard about as well too the district has announced, and in partnership obviously with the new pre-built system. So can you kind of give us an insight or help me understand how we can better partner with our local areas to basically get more schools in and efficiently and quickly, obviously, because the need is there?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks for volunteering. You know, the danger with volunteering is people will always ask you to do more. So thank you for stepping up and serving as president. The parent advisory councils are such a great way for the school to stay in touch with what parents need and make sure that they're delivering for parents. And at the district level, you're taking all the feedback. So I'm grateful that you're able to spend some time with us here today. Thanks for rearranging your schedule. A couple of thoughts. You know, I was at the announcement for the Latimer Elementary, the new school, 500 spaces, and I got pulled aside by the superintendent and the principal of the school where we did the announcement, and their anxiety was so real about the population growth here. They're like, you know, what we're seeing here, year over year growth. We just had a whole bunch of extra kids show up in September that we didn't have space for. And when you're in these roles where you just have to make it work, you know, they're like, we make it work. We figured a way forward, but we need you to know at the provincial level, this is the scale of the growth that we're seeing here. And we talked about it in health, 500,000 people in the last 2 years added to our medical services plan. It's big growth. That's record-setting growth. The same demand is present in our school system. So the Ministry of Education has gone back and said, okay, well, let's just think differently about this. The demand is so huge, it's growing so quickly. How do we respond to this other than portables? And what they came up with in part was existing schools, how do we expand them? The existing schools that we have, and they have this new program of working with school boards. We have 2 expansions that are taking place here in Langley. There are many more across the province. And instead of building them on site, also like housing, we're increasingly using modular housing construction, that the expansions are built and then assembled on the site to extend the school. It reduces construction time. It's faster deployment to respond to the scale of growth that we're seeing. And this is really what I'm encouraging the public service to do and our team in education to do, is how can we be innovative to be faster on increasing the spaces? That is a short-term plan. It is not a long-term plan. The long-term plan is we know where the growth is going to be. We know where the subdivisions are being approved. We know where the density is going. We need to be building the schools at the same time as the communities, not after the community's done. Government has always taken the approach, first, everyone's got to be there, and then you build the school. Which, when you have slower growth, like you can see how you would maybe get there, but it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And it certainly doesn't make sense when you're growing at the kind of numbers that we're seeing. So you're going to see a shift from us from that kind of reactive, okay, the demand is there now, we're going to start building the school, to the proactive of building the schools as the growth is happening. And that's where we have to head to, because I don't want to have another meeting like that with a stressed out superintendent. But you're absolutely right. We need more space for kids here in Langley, and Surrey is certainly another example of fast growing community.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So that leads me into the next question as well too. With the amount of growth, obviously we've talked about today, we've talked about the housing and housing initiatives, but really when we look at it from the perspective of if schools grow, more people come in, we need the resources to be able to. And some of the concerns that parents have ultimately, especially with our most vulnerable, is those with special needs. There's a process for assessments. And the assessments, how some of the assessments just take years to be able to advocate for, to get through, to get your child assessed, to be able to get those supports so the school can actually invest in the children to be able to have those supports. We seem to be, as there's lots as well, we've heard from other school districts as well too, just yesterday, the Vancouver School Board, but or my colleagues there at the district, they're saying that resource aides and resource teachers are still, we don't have the amount of people. So how do we bring in the people that we need, because we know we're growing so much and we need those supports here? So I don't know if you can speak on that as well too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had the opportunity to talk with a lot of big employers in the province, private sector, public sector, like school boards or hospitals. And the predominant theme that many of them have is, look, we have the jobs, we're ready to hire. The people that we need, though, the skills that we need in the people that we're looking for, we can't find those people that we're looking for. And that's TAs, that's resource workers, that's teachers in the school board. It's significant. We've increased the number of spaces for training for people, which is great. But we also, I believe we need to use the resources that we have more effectively for the kids who are in school right now. In my son's class, his teacher just went on leave. He's had now 3 supply teachers over the last 2 weeks. Grade 4 is an important year. And so as a parent, I'm looking at this and going, what kind of a grade 4 experience are you having if you have 5 different teachers in a few months? And that's just the basic classroom situation. For the kids who are really struggling, and I had a meeting with a bunch of parents of kids struggling with dyslexia, and they describe this experience they have of, they have their understanding that their kids at a certain level, their kids doing okay, whatever, and then they go into school and they look at the work that other kids are doing, and they suddenly realize that their kid is not at the same level and something's happening, but they didn't, there was just no way to identify it, and there was no way to spot it, and there wasn't the screening in place to help the teacher help them understand what was happening. So one of the things we're looking at is how can we give the teachers more tools to identify kids early that need additional support around basic skills like reading? And how do we incorporate evidence-based teaching policies around things like reading into the classroom teaching so that we're reaching all of the kids? There are always going to be a group of kids that need the more intensive supports. But if we can take a little bit of pressure off and have that teaching take place in the classroom, teachers are going to guide the learning and all of those important things, but giving them the tools and the training so that they're able to identify kids early on, have a conversation with the parent. It's not the level 5 screening. It's that early screening, like there's something going on here. Your kid's struggling with reading in these ways, and I've been trained, so I'm able to identify that. I'm going to have a conversation with you as a parent, and I'm going to tell you in the classroom, I'll be teaching your child in this way with this evidence-based policy, with this evidence-based approach that has been shown to support kids. And here's what you can do at home to support your kid so that we're using the resources that we already have in the classroom more effectively.
supplying parents with that support at home as well too, I always appreciate. I'm a massive advocate for being able to help out my child. I have that availability. Ultimately, we've talked about it already a little bit today, is about, I know the initiative about the Feeding Futures Fund. And I have to pass that on. I've been asked to pass on as well too, our appreciation for continuing this. We hope that that the government will continue to invest in this as well too, because we know that food insecurity ultimately is still a prevalent thing with a lot of our parents as well too. So I just wanted to thank you for that. If I could shift a little bit of a gear, one of the questions and concerns most topical as well as right now is about safety of our kids. You've talked, and the government has announced with regards to the cell phone, the bell-to-bell ban. We haven't seen that, but obviously that has some concerns because, you know, as we have seen the use of cell phones in schools be used as resources, and we appreciate being able to use those resources. Those that have the cell phones can use it. The concern here is if we take that away, that we now limit a child's ability to actually use that resource in school, where the school may not have that funding. Typically, PACs have been able to pick up on that funding in the past by iPads or laptops or, you know, those kind of things. But not every school is able to do that. Not every school PAC is able to fund that when we're already dealing with the food insecurity issue. So I guess my question is down that line is not only the cell phone ban, how do we keep that kind of going? And then we can talk about the rest of the safety as well. So.
Yeah, great question, Brian. You know, this is such a challenging issue for parents. You know, we've talked to parents about this since we made the announcement. And some parents and teachers are like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Our kid was pushing us for a cell phone. Now we have something we can say to them. Look, I know your friends in grade 5 have cell phones too, but I saw the Premier on TV. They're going to be banned next year. They're not going to be able to bring them to school. We're not going to get you a cell phone yet. You know, a kid in grade 4, or a kid in grade 5, kids in grade school, they don't have the tools to be the digital citizens. They're easily captured by people through the social media apps that they put on their phones. It's hard for parents to regulate what's on the phones, what they're seeing, what they're accessing. I worry because my kid's in the schoolyard and with other kids that have cell phones, they're all gathered around the cell phone. What are they watching? Who has access? What's happening? And so it's critical to so many parents, and I include myself in this group, that there are strict controls around this. And the disruption to learning of a kid in high school who gets a message in the middle of chemistry class and looks at it and reads it and thinks about it while the teacher's teaching. It takes 20 minutes for them to get back into class, is what the research says, for them to be able to get back to learning. There's another group of parents that has approached me since this announcement, and they come and said, look, you know, our kids really struggling in area A, B, or C, language, anxiety, just showing up where they're supposed to show up. I know I got a kid like that. And we want to know where they are. We want them to be able to use the phone for language translation. It helps them with the learning disability that they have. It's important for us to be in touch for whatever reason. And much like our approach to the breakfast program, and I'm so glad it's working for your district, we think that the principle is right, the bell-to-bell restriction on cell phones, but we want the implementation to work. We looked at Ontario. They said there's a ban on cell phones, and then they issued it. The implementation was such that there are still a lot of cell phones in schools. We say, okay, if we say this is the principle, this is what we're headed towards, and then look to the school boards and look to the teachers and the principals and say, how will this work in your community? How will you implement this in a way that makes sense? There are lots of schools that already have bell-to-bell bans. They do it all different ways. Some of them have lockers. Some of them, they just don't come out of the bags. Some of them, they're allowed in just certain discrete uses. If we allow and empower the school boards and the teachers and the principals to be able to ensure that it works for their school community and for their kids, we think we'll be able to achieve all of the benefits of the program and be able to carve out those spaces where kids really need that access to the phone for whatever reason that all of us would support. I just briefly, I met with a family of a young man named Carson Cleland, and Carson had a cell phone. He was an amazing kid, helped his community, was a community leader, was an amazing guy, healthy, happy, just a kid in the world, was contacted by a predator on Snapchat, and within 12 hours had taken his own life. This predator posed as a young girl, as a young woman that was interested in Carson. He sent her some pictures. It wasn't a her. It was someone that was threatening to send those pictures to everybody in his contact list, his whole family, and he panicked and he made a terrible decision in the moment that devastated his family and his community. And we got to keep kids safe from those threats. We got to support parents with this. And the commitment I made to Carson's family was that, and this is work that started back with Rena Burke and the bullying that she faced. And there's a kid named Robin out in Surrey that had a similar horrific outcome. Parents need more support in this area. Kids need more support in this area, and it's going to take all of us working together to do it.
Perfect. Thank you. I would just want to, again, back to the Feeding Futures Fund. If I can put a bit of a plug for parents as well too. Every parent is a member of your PAC, as we know. That is a given. So please do attend your meetings so you can actually talk and voice your concerns. But with Feeding Futures,
yes.
I just hope that we have your commitment and the government's commitment to provide that funding so we can still use that, especially for our students and through our school districts, because that is greatly needed, especially now, especially, like I said, with the food insecurity. So I just thank you again for that, but hope that continued commitment comes from the government so we can have that. So.
Absolutely, Brian. That's an easy commitment to make. Yeah. You know, when I was at that school in Surrey seeing the breakfast program and the woman who served this breakfast program for many years at this school, there was a little kid there who said, you know, there's so much food here. This is where the food is and this is where the love is. And, you know, just a kid just coming up with this kind of poetry, just having breakfast with his pals. And it's very moving. And I'm sure you've had that experience here. I don't know what the program looks like.
Yeah, no, my daughter as well too. She was helping out, and she just loved being able to go to spend time with other people. And I think that's part of the community aspect to it that really just helps out where people can feel and the kids can feel comfortable to come forward and need it and you know, spend more time together. And I think, you know, like I said, food brings us all together. I think in a lot of different ways. But I think that's a great opportunity for our kids. And although you hate to see that it's needed, but it is. So why don't we make it an atmosphere? And exactly, that child is right. That's where the love is. And so that's great to see and hear.
Awesome, Brian. Thanks for your work.
Thank you very much.
You.
All right.
Yeah,
thank you.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. I remember my journey started as president of Langley DPAC, so just remember, be careful what you volunteer for.
Yeah, seriously.
That was
a good caution, Megan.
Many great years ago. And thank you also for pointing out the challenge that we face in Langley, which is that we need not only more space, but we need more space faster, which is why I'm really grateful, Premier, that there is that look at different ways of doing things like modular to address those communities where there was underinvestment for so long, and now you've got sort of the intersecting challenges with growth. And I know we have a fantastic DPAC, and we have a great school board, and we have our secretary treasurer and our board chair here today, and very active and work so well together to really advocate for our growing community. So thank you very much, Brian, for coming out. And thank you, Premier, for coming out and connecting with so many members of our community. And I know there's so many out there that want to say hi to you. And I just want to thank you for always checking in on what's going on in Langley as we continue to grow and really always willing to look at innovative ways to address what's going on in a fast-growing region. So thank you so much for coming out today. It's always such a pleasure to have you here in our community.
Thanks for hosting, Megan. Thanks, everybody.